Joining us now on 12 Sports tonight, John Gambadoro from the Burns Gambo Show, Arizona Sports 98.7 FM. Gambo, you and I have been chatting back and forth about this all week, so let's just get into it.
Okay.
Who's to blame for the Suns? The coach, the owner, or the players, where this team is 11th in the West, below 500, and the problems seem worse this year than they were last year?
Look, I think everybody has to bear some of the responsibility, but ultimately, to me, you can't keep firing the coach and blaming everybody else. The accountability needs to be with the players. You got two Hall of Fame players here in Durant and Booker. I mean, it's a good roster. I'm not saying it's the best roster in the league, but there's no way that they should be 11th in the West. The majority of the accountability needs to be on the players for not performing. There's blame everywhere, but the players take most of the blame.
So what's not working in your eyes, Gambo? Why hasn't this group worked together?
There's a lot of reasons why, but I think the main thing is that we talk about this all the time. Like they lack that alpha leader. They lack that guy that can just bring everything together. They lack that Jimmy Butler, that Chris Paul. They got talent, but they haven't been able to make the talent work together. And I think more than anything, I think when this team gets punched in the mouth, Cam, man, they fall apart. Things start to go south on them. They take the ball and they go home. There's no fight. There's no fight in this team. So I think there's good players. I think there's good talent. I think they clearly lack physicality and they lack leadership. And that's just something that, they tried to address by getting Jimmy Butler and they weren't able to do it.
It's amazing the impact Jimmy Butler has had on the Warriors, not necessarily on the stat sheet, but Draymond Green came out the other day and basically alluded to the fact that he's been one of the most important pieces they've added in a long time, just from what he's brought from that attitude standpoint. So when it comes to the Suns, Gamble, how do they find it? They got less than 30 games to go. They're outside the playoff picture. Will they find it? Can they find it? How do they find it?
I know they got the toughest schedule in the league, Cam. I mean, what I'm looking at right now is I don't even think they can get to the 6th seed. I think that's impossible. The Clippers are 5 games better than them right now. They're in 6th. And there's 4 teams between them and the Clippers. And the Suns have a brutal schedule. I would love for them not to be in 9th or 10th. Can they get 7th or 8th? Where they might, if they can win a game, they don't have to play twice. You play that 9-10 game, you've got to win. Then you got to play again and you got to win. And then you got to go play Oklahoma City. The schedule's brutal. I mean, I think we're probably looking at 41 or 42 wins. If they really kick it into gear, we're talking about 43 wins. I mean, they're 2 games under 500. They're not going to finish 10 games over. So I think it's going to be a battle right to the end to try to get one of those last play-in spots.
And then what do you do after that, Gamble? Because clearly, even the picture you're painting, that's not a contending team. That's just getting into the playoffs. It's the same problem there were last year. So what do you do?
I think we're going to get to the summer. Obviously, they're not going to trade Devin Booker. They're going to get to the summer, and you're going to look at trading Kevin Durant. You're going to go back and you're going to revisit that. Can you get a combination? Okay, the trade with Golden State would have given them a combination of good players for now and future draft assets, and it's going to be something like that. That's why there was no deal with Miami. There's got to be a deal for Durant that brings them back good players now that you could have a soft rebuild around Booker, and then players for the future as far as draft assets and capital. I think that's what but you're going to have, this will be the third, if they fail. Now, again, puncher's chance in the playoffs. You got Durant, you got Booker, puncher's chance. So you don't want to write them off, but it's unlikely they're going to go very far in the playoffs. It's unlikely. You get to the after the postseason's over. Ken, we're talking about 3 years of the playoffs with Kevin Durant. 3 years. And right now they've got 1 series win and 2 series losses, and one of those was a sweep. If they don't advance very far in the playoffs, they don't even make it, you have no choice. You have to trade Durant, even though he's a great player, one of the greatest we've ever seen.
I hope people keep in mind that. It's nothing to do with his greatness. It's just not working here. Yeah.
I mean, at one point, the Lakers got rid of Shaq and kept Kobe, right? You're not going to get rid of Booker. They're going to keep Booker, but you're going to get rid of KD because he's going to get you a lot back. Hopefully, at least 2 young players that you can help build around Book and draft capital for the future.
So, Gamble, get you out here on this. If you had one thing to say to Suns fans, what would you say to them? Where should their temperature be? Where should their anger be? What do you think Suns fans should feel in these moments?
Pitches and catches just reported the other day. Go D-backs. There's not a lot of hope, right? There's not a lot of hope. I mean, they just have to play better. They have to play better. I don't want to keep firing the coach and blaming everybody. They have the most expensive team in the history of the NBA.
Well, you can't keep firing the coach. Like Mike Budenholzer is going to be this coach for years to come. It's just what it is. You've already fired one.
You fired 3 in a row. Monty, right? You fired Monty and you fired Frank, and then if you fired Budenholzer, it'll be 3 in a row. It's just a bad look. I would say for Suns fans, you've got great assets to move in Durant and Booker. I don't think they'll move both, but you're going to be able to rebuild. Houston has all their draft picks, so you can't tank, right? You can't tank because you're going to have a top 5 pick. It's going to go to Houston unless you trade with Houston and get those picks back. I would tell Suns fans the best thing to look forward to is a trade in the offseason that can bring back young talent and future draft capital so you could start this rebuild, because nobody's beaten Oklahoma City and Memphis and Houston, and I think even San Antonio in these next couple of years. It's going to be their time. The Suns have to build for 3-4 years from now.
And to that point, they don't have a Durant. They got young, hungry players that can run up and down the floor and play defense, and the Suns don't have that.
No, they struggle more than anything with young athletic teams. Young athletic teams that get out and run, fast break points. These teams that turn a steal, a turnover into an easy layup or dunk. The Suns really struggle with that. The Suns are not a good defensive team. So they've got problems because that's what Butler would have helped. Butler would have been able to guard anybody. He could guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He could guard Kawhi Leonard. He could guard LeBron James. That's where Butler's not as good as Durant, but he may have been a better fit than Kevin Durant.
And you and I have talked about this, like what's missing on this team is all defensive team guys, like guys that could really, that you're like, hey, he could play defense. He could play defense. Across the board, the Suns just don't have one guy, two guys. They don't have any guys that can really play that elite level of defense on the team.
And I think, but I think they knew that going in. I think they knew, kind of like we looked at the Cardinals, they're going to score a lot of points. We thought the Cardinals would score a lot of points and not be great defensively because they didn't have that pass rusher. I think we all expected the Suns were going to struggle defensively, but be so good offensively. You remember when Book had that comment, like, I don't know anybody's going to be able to stop this offense after they got Beal? Remember that comment?
It made sense in the moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was like, nobody's going to be able to stop us. That was the goal. The goal was that nobody was going to be able to stop the Suns. But they are so bad defensively, and offensively, they're not as good as they want to be. And it's led to a lot of losses this year.
Gambo, appreciate the time, buddy.
All right, Cam, you got it. Be good.